I'd like to talk a little bit about the decisions that are involved in making the move from home. Most of us would love to be able to stay in our home as we age. It's not always possible for a variety of reasons. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what are the factors and considerations and what are the options that are available to families so they can make informed decisions that not only serve the short-term but the long-term needs of family members. The move from home, however necessary and however potentially positive, represents a loss. Most people have many memories and a sense of their life well lived in their home. And as one woman told me, I thought my life was over. I just realized I had a new life. And what I hope we can impart to people is, yeah, they are closing a chapter, and with that closing of a chapter is a sense of loss, but they have the ability to create a new chapter. Family members, because they are concerned about the loss, are apt to truncate the grieving process. I like to say you have to experience the cloud before you can see the silver lining. So it's important to acknowledge the loss. Rather than offer all the positives that the move can represent, it might be more effective initially to listen and allow the person to talk about their sense of loss and then be in a better position to make a positive transition. What are the considerations that you want to think about when you are making a move? Number one is financial. A dark joke is that I never underestimate an older person's ability to outlive their resources. So unfortunately, that needs to be considered. Some of us are fortunate to have enough money to last a lifetime and then beyond, but most of us are not. So as one is making a decision about a move, it's important to understand what is somebody going to be able to afford for the short term as well as the long term. So it may be that an older adult has enough money to last 2 or 3 years, but eventually they're going to be needing to rely on public assistance or Medicaid. Keep that in mind as you're making the decisions. How long will Dad's money last in this particular setting? What is the cost of living increase that historically has gone on in this particular setting? Those are things that need to be considered. If Dad runs out of funds, does the facility have a charitable fund that you can tap into, or will the facility accept public funds? Finances are a really important part of the equation. It's important not to spend all one's funds in a facility or at home receiving home care to the point where funds are depleted. Many of the facilities that do accept public funding, whether it's assisted living or a nursing home, want to have somebody pay privately for a year or two. You're better off going into a facility with some amount of private funds that can last a year or two rather than going in when all the funds are depleted. Options will be greatly increased if you have some private funds to pay initially. Another important piece of the decision is looking at the social life of the individual who's going to be moving. Some people are very solitary and they don't necessarily want or need to be very active. There's a normal part of aging from my perspective that allows for some amount of passivity. That it's okay to be able to sit and recall memories or sit and watch the birds outside. We don't have to be constantly active. And some people, including myself, suggest that passivity can be a normal part of aging. On the other hand, social isolation can create depression, and that can lead to medical problems. So being aware of the social aspects of an elder's life is important. Is a person content to be on their own? Do they like their own company? Do they have inner resources that can enrich their life without a flurry of activity? We might think of social encounters and a lot of activity as a value. The older adult might not need it or value it. So consider that. The other thing to realize is that the facility may have a lot of activities, but your older adult isn't necessarily going to participate in them if they choose not to. And most facilities will not be pushing the older adult to do so. They will talk about the individual's choice to refuse activity. So if the main motivation is to get the older adult more social, number one, you might want to think about, is this a legitimate need of the older adult? And number two is the person being socially isolated for other reasons, such as depression, that might be investigated before a move is made. One more consideration when we're looking at social aspects is to be looking at the culture of the facility. I work with individuals who maybe have been working class, but because they play the stock market or for whatever reason amassed a large amount of money. And they may have plenty of money to go to a very high-end facility, but that's not who they are as culturally, economically, socially. You want to make sure that the facility that you're looking at fits in with who your family member is from those perspectives. Likewise, some people want a facility that has a religious affiliation or maybe an ethnic affiliation. Your family member is going to be hopefully creating a sense of home and creating a sense of community. And if they're in a facility where the other individuals have the same background, their success in creating a sense of community is going to be much greater. Finally, when you're looking at a facility, we talked about finances, we talked about the social aspect of making a decision. The other piece is the function of the individual that's needing care. When you're looking at function, you're probably talking about an assisted living or you're talking about a nursing home. And make sure, particularly when you're looking at assisted living, that the needs of the individual are going to be able to be met for the long term and not just the short term. Many places will say, we can do X, Y, Z, but they don't tell you that they can't do A, B, C. While you are looking at what they can offer, it's also very important to look at what they can't offer. You don't want to get a phone call on Monday morning saying, we can't meet your dad's needs anymore, he needs to move out by Friday. So look ahead, be aware, again, know what the facility offers and also know what they don't offer.